I entered the warm wooden interior of my cabin on the Grand Cipher, carrying an armful of books. I laid them on the desk, drew out a chair, and took a short trip through Seed Hollow's history. Unbroken peace. For 500 years after the ending of the war, violence had not troubled the skies of Zeka Grande. There were your usual skirmishes, of course, power-hungry rebels, etc., but nothing so big it had not been quickly sorted out and buried in the sands of time. However, 15 years ago, tragedy on Dali Island acted as a catalyst to the rise of Avia. Hitherto peaceful primals went on rampage, and hordes of monsters were drawn to the carnage. So that's why. I thought back to the disordered ranks of the forces of Seed Hollow. Peace had dulled their senses. They had forgotten how to handle swords and spears, forgotten how to manage monsters, each one vastly different in shape and movement. They need guidance. The people of Seed Hollow seem to be gardeners, fond of orchards and good rich earth. They had no love of war, nor possessed the means for a great campaign. Unless a revolution were to completely reshape this country, I did not believe it would ever pose a threat to Fiendrock. Its forces existed not to invade, but solely to defend. But now, they had not even the power to do that. Seed Hollow soldiers were steadfast and honorable. I had seen that. But they no longer knew how to protect their land. I had come to admire the delicate flowers and many bowed trees that flourished in this clime, and did not wish to see them trampled under a monster's claw or an invader's boot. I could offer Seed Hollow's forces counsel, but I would have to tread carefully. After all, I was a foreigner, and a former captain of knights. One misstep, and I could forever sour the relations between Seed Hollow and Fiendrock. I will have to be discreet. I threw on my traveling cloak and arranged my pouch. Hearing no footfalls outside my room, I slipped through the door and padded softly down the corridor.
Oh, hey, Siegfried! You heading out?
Vern spotted me on the deck of the Grand Cipher. So much for stealing off unnoticed. I'm going for a walk.
On your tiptoes? No way, man! I bet you're going on another one of your secret missions.
Though small, Vern had inherited the legendary wisdom of the dragons. Guilty as charged. But the fewer people who know about it, the better. Can you keep this from the others?
Come on, Siegfried. We all know you won't yak for truth and honor and justice and all that. If you're gonna disappear, you should at least tell your captain. My butt'll understand.
I could find no objection. It seemed that all the adventures Vern had been on, all the grand and wondrous things he'd seen, had sharpened his insight. Yes, of course. You're right. I followed Vern to the captain's cabin. I've come to ask for permission to leave on a private mission. But I must warn you, if things go wrong, it could spell trouble for the crew. My throat was tight, light nerves, I supposed, and a touch of guilt. The captain did no more than smile and wish me a safe journey.
What'd you expect? We trust you.
Fortune truly had graced me with the best of companions. I strode through the gates of Seed Hollow.
So, what you gonna do here?
With a dragon on my tail. I would like to ask you the same question. Why did you follow me?
curiosity. What's a cool knight like you always doing when he leaves the Grand Cipher?
Curiosity killed the lizard. But no matter. Vern and the captain had offered me their complete trust, so I could do the same in return. Besides, if anything were to happen, I'd be there to protect him. You're welcome to stay, but I'm only visiting Seed Hollow's forces again to offer help if I may. Nothing of interest.
Sounds like something my bud would do, but I thought you were gonna leave them alone to help them save face or whatever.
I was, but I realized that, in the end, the safety of the people is too heavy a price to pay for pride.
That's fair. No offense though, Siegfried. Your way with words is a little, special. So I'll just come along and do the talking.
20 minutes later, Vern and I were in the heart of Seed Hollow, watching its soldiers scurry about like mice. 500 years of peace has truly taken its toll. Seed Hollow's forces had become only an army in name. In truth, the military affairs of the country were run by Zothba, a civilian and information broker. Everyone took orders from him.
Dispatch from Zothba. We got a lost child on our hands. Everyone, split up and search for the mother.
Yes, sir!
Man, you ever just get lost and have a whole army look for your mom?
Vern hovered by the branches of a tall oak, surveying the commotion with shining eyes. It is important to serve your people in times of concord as in times of strife, but I fear they have lost sight of their true duty. There is a saying, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Peace should never so lull a nation that its defenses are abandoned and its soldiers turned into clerks and errand boys.
Captain, new orders just came in. We're being sent to clear a horde of goblins camped right outside the city.
Now these errand boys faced hordes of monsters who had been roused by Avia's machinations. 500 years of stillness, nature, and peace gone. All at the whim of a madwoman.
You hear that, troops? Prepare for battle! Drive those goblins away from our homes!
Yes, sir!
They sure got bark. Problem is, they ain't got bite.
Are you worried about them?
Aren't you? You saw them get their butts kicked into the next Skydom just a few days ago.
I did, but failure is the mother of success. I readjusted my gauntlet and shifted my sword on my back. This is a chance for them to grow. I'll make sure of it. Vern and I left Seed Hollow and turned off the road, beating a straight path to the goblins' encampment through trees and underbrush. We arrived before the soldiers. In front of us, half hidden in the darkness of a cave, slinked the forms of dozens of goblins. Alone, goblins are not much of a threat, but when they're allowed to form hordes,
Oh, I know all about those smart little suckers. They can plot stuff and coordinate and everything.
I smiled. Vern was as much of a veteran as I was.
So earlier, you sounded like you were gonna help these soldiers out. What exactly have you got planned?
As you know, all monsters are different and must be dealt with in different ways. We shall teach these tactics to the soldiers, but from the shadows. Plan rehearsed, Vern and I crept from the shade of the trees and into the mouth of the cave. Ready? Our mission awaits. We've got to break their formations. First, let's go for a frontal assault on the sentries.
The army from Seed Hollow will be here any minute now! Hurry!
Don't worry. We won't even need a minute.
We made it!
Push
Looks
through!
like the soldiers are still prepping for the fight!
Perfect. That gives us just enough time to thin down their main ranks.
More gobbles! Man, there's a lot of them!
Well, let's fix that, shall we?
Your end is nigh! This is power! Push through!
I can't believe they had so large a force. It's a good thing we came.
This is... Push through! This is power!
You get reinforcements! You've got this, Siegfried!
Push through!
Hey, bud! I don't think there's any butt left to kick around here.
Surrender! This is power! Ready! Brave away! Great!
Heal! You might want to heal! I don't think you
Push through!
more! Watch out for the shooter! You might want to... Nice work! I think the soldiers can pick off what's left.
I think there are a few more goblins hidden. We're likely not enough to reverse the tide. We had still better conduct a search, just to be safe. Let's go in deeper.
Look! It's a goblin soldier! And what are those? It's little sidekicks?
I don't think Seed Hollow's forces will be able to handle this. We should at least bring down the goblin soldier.
So leave all the small fry alone? Got it. Don't want to rob Seed Hollow's finest of a job. They're trying to hit you from far away.
This is power! You're finished! Your end is nigh!
Don't mistake
You have to help Siegfried.
Let's push through! Let our blades do the talking.
Poison on fire!
This is power! Push through!
Pour it out, pal.
This is power! You're finished! Attack! Push through!
just getting started.
This is power! Push through!
You have to help Siegfried.
What? Well, I think we're done here. The army from Seed Hollow should be capable of handling the rest.
All right. This is power! Stay together! Push through!
Holy Bahamut! We did it!
The day is ours! Good work, troops!
Vern and I crouched behind a craggy boulder and watched as the soldiers strode about the battlefield. Not a goblin was left. The voices of the triumphant rose up and resonated about the high, cool walls of the cavern. All went well.
I guess, but those soldiers took a heck of a beating.
Vern perched himself on top of the boulder, head cocked to one side. They will continue to grow. They have experience now, and what's more, confidence. They will learn to keep their wits about them in battle, to observe the enemy and strategize.
If you're sure, there's something I've been wondering about, though, Siegfried. You didn't have to help these people. You're not even getting paid for this. So why go through the trouble?
I laughed softly. I think you already know the answer to that riddle. Because everything good in this world is worth protecting.
Need something?
Three days after the victory in the caves, Vern rushed into my cabin.
Dude, he's here! The captain of Seed Hollow's army is here!
Here, on the Grand Cipher. My eyebrows drew themselves together. I was quite certain we hadn't been seen.
Do you think he figured us out?
No, that shouldn't be possible. I had lived and worked in the shadows for many years. I knew how to remain invisible. Let us meet him in any case. It would be discourteous to turn him away.
Agreed! We're lots of things, but rude ain't one of them.
Vern led me to a spacious room on the Grand Cipher, where our guest sat perched on the edge of a comfortable chair, his hands upon his knees. He stood up quickly when we entered.
It's, been a while.
He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. As the young man swallowed rather loudly, I recalled his last words to me. We can handle monsters without you swinging in to save the day. It has. I still regret my actions in the forest. Is that what you've come to talk about?
No!
He shook his head vigorously.
I'm here to thank you. You saved my life, and the lives of my comrades.
So, our presence had been noticed. I swept my cloak back in a deep bow. I apologize for interfering yet again.
Oh, no, please, stop with the apologies. You're just making me feel worse. Listen.
He explained. 3 days ago, Seed Hollow's army had been called upon to drive back a horde of goblins. He had marched his company there with a heavy heart, expecting great losses. But to his surprise, when they emerged from the goblin den, they were not missing even a single soldier.
Goblins are intelligent. They post sentinels and form ranks, just like we do. Sword fighters and shield bearers in front, mages in back. Any battle with them should have been tough and bloody.
Yet these goblins had no set sentries, and their forces were meager and scattered. Even the large beasts the goblins kept in reserve had been terribly weakened by the time Seed Hollow's forces reached it.
But what could have worn it out like that? A night of partying too hard? No. Someone had to have helped us, and luckily, I had an inkling who.
Now he raised his round, earnest face and looked straight at me.
There was this knight who'd saved my troops before. He wore jet black armor and carried a crimson sword.
Yeah, no way you'd forget that getup after seeing it once.
Vern peered down at my armor. It was matte black, so I could slip by in the night unseen. But I suppose outlined against the light of the sun, it cut quite a distinctive figure.
The rest really wasn't that difficult. Went with that description to a merchant who deals with a lot of foreign traffic, and learned about a former knight captain.
I see. Years away from the battlefield had dulled the army's swords. This I already knew. But now I realize it had allowed them to build rapport with their people, winning them trusted eyes and ears throughout their country.
If anyone should be apologizing, it's me.
Before I could stop him, he went down on one knee.
That day in the forest, I was frustrated and ashamed by the weakness of my troops. So I took it out on you. I'm sorry. You saved my soldiers not only once, but twice. And the second time around, you even made sure we learned from the experience. I really don't know how to make it up to you.
Vern and I looked at each other, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. Your kind words are more than enough, and your forgiveness. The young man opened his mouth, but I shook my head. Whatever the circumstances, I still trampled your pride underfoot.
What's pride when compared to life?
To speak the truth, I thought Seed Hollow's forces poorly trained and disorganized, from an outsider's perspective at least. By placing a hand beneath the man's elbow, I silently bid him rise. But I see now that you have strength and wisdom that was hidden to me. With you in command, I have no doubt your company will go on to accomplish great things.
That means a lot, coming from you.
He smiled, the tension melting from his frame.
But the fact remains that I let my soldiers get out of practice. You've helped me realize a lot these past few days, and I promise we'll train harder than ever, make up for lost time, and become the defenders this country deserves.
Good. Never stop believing in yourselves. Seed Hollow, a land of gardeners who derive joy from the bounty of flora and the simplicity of peace. Though they were no longer the mightiest of warriors, they were by no means weak. No more than the wildflower, who holds aloft its petals in dry soil and through battering storms. And like wildflowers, they would continue to grow and flourish. Though Seed Hollow is a small country now, perhaps in time, it will rise to become a mighty nation. When that day comes, it surely will make a valuable ally for Fiendrock.
Hey, is it just me, or have we been getting less monster hunting missions recently?
We, as all Skyfarers, were used to shouldering the quests of greatest peril, as we've seen more combat than most standing armies. However, though Zega Grande was as plagued by monsters as ever, we'd had a quiet few days.
I think I can explain.
Lyria raised her hand, eager to impart valuable intelligence.
Apparently, Seed Hollow's soldiers have been super on top of things lately. A monster appears, and before the Crew Alliance can even draft up a mission, they get in there and solve the problem.
Good for them, but less work for us means less jingle in our pockets.
Vern drifted to me from across the room, and positioning his snout by my ear, spoke in a whisper.
Guess they really got their act together, huh?
It would certainly seem so. I looked up at my small comrade in training. We exchanged a secret smile. Well done, troops. Well done.
Which will it be? What do you say? Will you accept it? We're counting on you.
Forget all our past matches. The only thing you have to worry about now is avoiding certain death!
I needed to stretch my short arm. Run like a bull. School like a run like a bull. That's the shot. Where you get back? Destroy your head!
Don't
strength.
School
I shall light the way.
Loud and clear. Oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's over.
Impressive.
Blade like a feather. School, I blade like a feather. School, I run like a book. School, can't be other time.
Don't overexert yourself.
Forward. Run like a feather. School,
I rather enjoyed that.
no run. We gave him what for. Run like a book. School like a book. He'll work in perfect. Run red. How's about we end it? Try to keep up. Brave away. Red like a book.
My disciple!
Close call.
Damn, must have got distracted. Red like a book, blade like a book, school. Red like a no running, this guy. School like blade like a book, go time. Ooh, somebody get this young man on a stage. Reel him in.
Shall be your time. Return to the abyss.
Red like a book.
You'll go home.
Blood on your tail. So long, ultimate flag. Butterfinger. And it goes up. Blade like a book. School like
The fangs are bad.
Towards the finger. Join as one. Prominence flare. No running for me. Where you looking? Let that break one of those overboard, get me? Red like a can't be another time, can you?
Hold fast. I'm coming. You will survive.
I'm itching to get back out there.
Blade.
Blade like a he'll hurt me as a pig.
Seize them. Seize the dead.
Let's reel him in. Try to keep, oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That big boy.
Don't I'm eager to see their limits.
Martial spear! Let's see!
Withdraw. Regain your composure. Don't move.
Try to keep up. Watch and learn.
I have you. Can you stand?
They cut my goose. Over here, you son! School! Red like a book. Blade like a book.
Understood.
I want to rouse this.
No running, no kid.
Let's keep it up.
Now we go another round. Red like a book.
This is power!
Where are you looking? Not in spot. This can't be other time, can you?
Save yourself. I'll arrive soon.
How fast are you?
Sorry for the mess. I'll apply first aid. You're finished! This ground shall be your time! Turn to the abyss! Go the closer! Kick him out! Into infinity! Back dragon! The fangs are bent. Towards the finger! Yo, Dora! Ultimate time! Shine as one! Prominent flare! Glamour over now. Fight is rage forward! Never mind! Brave away! Or break this in! As the this is hell! Talking nice! Over here, you cunt! Go time! Go one! 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9! We're through! Storming death! The finale! Bring out the storm, my son! Scarlet Sword, heed my call! Nia! No running for me! Die! Say your name!
Seems the yarns about you are threaded with truth.
Eager to see you weave your own tapestry, young
Red like a
This is the blood!
Try to keep up where you look at. Oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Can't be other time, can you?
I shall heal you!
Look it out!
On me!
You guys!
I can always rely on this.
Naturally.
You said it! Red like a ball! School! Red like a ball! School! That hit his butt!
Gather like shadows at dawn! Blow and wool!
Flame like a sun! No running for me! Red like a ball!
Don't the closer!
Blazing kiss of the wind!
Ready for action! Ultimate time! Victory!
Back to the board!
Flame like a red like a ball! Flame like a
Shine as one! Prominent flare!
Glamour over now.
We finally got
overboard, didn't we? Flame like a school!
Follow close! Self-formation! And fight!
No running for me! We end it! Where you looking? Go time! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10! It's over! Mercy me! Pull it together!
Hold fast! I'm coming!
Over here, you cunt! Red like a flame! Can't be bothered time!
Who's on the way? I shall take heed. Come, the battle is.
Who's ready for some cold-blooded revenge? Mercy me!
Hang in there!
Fiddlestick!
Save yourself! I'll arrive our blades do stand.
Where you looking? With fury!
Finish him!
Run if you can! Gotta be gumpy! You're way ahead of the pack!
You've mastered so many forms. You're a pattern to yourself.
Try to keep up! Can't beat Mother Time, can you?
Don't overexert yourself.
I'll walk it out! Blade like a... Blade like a... School like a... Red like a... School like a... Blade like a...
Attack! You've met your match!
Red like a...
Makes the warrior
Real guts! To survive this assault! Watch closely now!
Can't beat Mother Time, can you?
need of your aid.
Must have got distracted!
Gather like shadows at dawn!
Try to keep up! Ready for action! Ultimate Climb! Victory!
Back to the board!
Blade like a red like a watch it
Shine as one! Prominent flare!
6, 7, 8, 9, 10! That big forward! Overboard!
Come!
Oh yeah!
Assault formation! The fight!
Over here, you done? No running where you looking! School? Wait! Where are those varmints? Blade like a... School? Can't be another time, can you?
I have you!
Ghost must have got distracted! Try to keep up!
Withdraw! Regain your composure!
Blade like... Red like a...
Into the fray! At what shoots?
Over here, you
Well
cunt!
done! Cool.
I love a good group attack! Red like a school, I blade like a... Red... That's the shot! Try to keep up! Blade like above! We end it! Red like a
Blade of adamant bright!
blade like a school like... Oh yeah! One! Ready for action! And none shall escape the cover of its shroud! Done to knock! Victory!
Back to the board!
Red like a...
Only death awaits!
Shine as one! Prominent flare! Let's do this again!
That was one heck of a fight, but I knew I could count on you.
Lovely! Nanu! Lovely! Schooled like a fish! Oh boy! I'm ready to get down to the bog!
Need something?
Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a lone swordsman famed for his two-sword style. He became a legend after fighting over 10,000 battles, and the mere sound of his name struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. Whenever he appeared in town, ne'er-do-wells were said to scramble away like spiders fleeing the light. Prospective fighters began to seek out the swordsman, and thus he gained quite the following of disciples. Amongst them, some were so strong they could crush warships with a single strike. One could do worse when choosing students of the martial arts. So the master abandoned the battlefield for the mountains, where he could train his beloved disciples in peace. There was one disciple who quickly stood leagues above the rest. It took her only a matter of days to master the most complicated techniques. She grew at an astonishing rate into one of the most powerful fighters the master had ever seen. But more impressive than her wits or her aptitude was the strength of her conviction. Every day, the top disciple begged for harder training, and the master was willing to reward her passion with the very depths of his knowledge. And that's why... Oh, skies help me. That's why when the master found out his top disciple had betrayed him, he was filled with anguish. She went rogue, forcing some of the other disciples to do her bidding. Eventually, the master caught up with her, and they fought a deadly battle. When the dust settled, the top disciple's sword arm hung limp and unusable. It was a bittersweet victory, as the master knew what must come next. He readied his blade, preparing to release her to the afterlife. But he couldn't force himself to make the cut. Not after all he had poured into this girl. Not after failing her so. Thus, he laid down his weapon and promised to live his remaining days in penance and regret. Oh, how our good intentions cloud even the most prescient vision. Having thrown away his name, his blade, and his path, he set out back into the world. But this time, swearing no one would suffer from his tutelage again. Time passed, and the swordsman found himself atop a different mountain, where he learned he had a knack for fishing. Suited him just fine. Bass for breakfast, salmon for supper, and naps in between. Yep, it suited him just fine. It was the quiet, healing life of a hermit. Sometimes, when he needed supplies, he would go down to the village and train the locals in a little sword work. That made his coin purse jingle again. But this peace wasn't to last for the swordsman. He discovered his top disciple was back to her wicked ways, and, sword in hand, he vowed to conclude her story for good. This was his true purpose for traveling with the crew, though the young captain never suspected the little Harvan fisherman was harboring such a dark secret. The former disciple's latest victim had been a simple man from a remote mountain area, cut down, somehow without the use of her sword. A real shame that, One more innocent life lost before its time. The swordsman asked the crew to make haste to the village. When he saw the murdered man's corpse, such was the carnage that he could barely keep from averting his eyes. It was his weakness, his cowardice, that cost this poor man's life. But this time, instead of wallowing in pity, he would don his white uniform of old and atone. He called it his burial garb, and it represented his fearlessness on the battlefield. If he were dressed to meet death face to face, what more could his foes do to intimidate him? Of course, his crewmates tried to reason with him, concerned he might throw his life away to make up for the wrongdoing of another. But the Swordmaster was determined. He had vowed to stop his former disciple, whatever risk that entailed. So, when finally the moment of reckoning had come, the Master gripped his blade, ready to strike down his favored pupil. Before he could do the deed, however, his resolve crumbled. His emotions were too strong, dulling his senses and causing him to lose the match. The Master's former youngest disciple, with his two newest pupils watching from the sidelines, rushed to aid him. Ironically, it was the youngest disciple who struck down the fiend in place of the Master. The swordsman was lost in grief, but his newfound champion told him this was for the best. After all, such an old life deserved the rest of its days to be spent in peace. After joining up with the crew, I've had some helter-skelter days, let me tell you. So when we arrived in Zega Grande, I knew I needed to get myself some fishing done. Reset the old noggin. Found a nice quiet pond and dropped my line. Bless me taters. Must have been hours past with no bite. Finally, I decided to pull up my rod and check if the bait was still hardy. But there weren't no bait, no hook, and no fish. Only a lonely little bobber remained on the line. Right, well, what about me traps? I was halfway through the search when I realized, blast, I left them in the lodge. What a day, what a day. But it was too late in the noon to go back for them, and I had other business to attend to, like getting back to the pond and staring out at the clear water. In that moment of stillness, the fishies swam out of their hiding spots. There were big ones and little ones, and the whole school of them reminded me of my teaching days. Each of my disciples was unique in their own right. Had me some slow learners and some fast ones, some goody two-shoes and some real punks. I learned me some good lessons from those kids. My top student, Grace, never wavered in her particular sense of justice, and her commitment to her training was ironclad. What a waste. Rains, my youngest pupil, lost his way for decades after leaving my tutelage, but he ended up killing Grace in my stead. He was selfless, thinking only of his master. They say the master extracts potential from the student, but I fear I've ruined more young lives than I've helped. Makes a fisherman wonder how they all would have turned out had he just kept well enough to himself. I turned Grace into a monster. Not a day goes by I don't regret honing her skills. Unfortunately, she had the gift and the gumption to go far, and I exhausted all my knowledge on her. If only I had focused more on the why of my teachings rather than the what. Huh? I swore I felt a nibble at my rod, but when I pulled it up, there was nothing to be found. That's when I remembered I still hadn't hooked or baited the line. That was odd. I was getting antsy. Maybe it was because I forgot the traps, but I couldn't relax just sitting there anymore. I decided to pack up and head back into town. You see, the mind is like a creek. You want to keep it healthy. You gotta keep the waters from stagnating. But churn them too much, and you risk losing all your fish. I decided to head to Sierra's shack and replace some fishing gear, hopefully restoring my brain pond in the process. But just as I was dipping my toes into the placid waters of the lures and bait, I heard a rustle from behind. And to my surprise, they were my crewmates, picking up a package. Said they were bored at the inn and asked if they could come fishing with me. Youngsters so bored they wanted to go fishing? First time for everything, huh? While I was hammering out the finer points of fly casting with the captain, Sierra Carte piped up. Said she'd come across a pretty tasty rumor.
Yep, apparently there's a legendary fisherman in this skydom that people have started calling the Fisher God.
I'd heard rumors like this one before, and they always stank like fish guts. Catching 10 fish with one cast, netting a whole consortium of crabs. By yourself? Gah! If I had a fin for every story like this, I'd be a pretty scary sea monster by now. Then again, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued. There's a scale of truth to every story, so there must be a reason they call this person the Fisher God. Guess you might say my interest was piqued. Because if this fella were half as good as me, he'd make a mighty fine rival. And maybe that's just what I needed.